The air hung heavy with tension. The South Carolina sun beat down on the prison yard, turning the concrete into a shimmering mirage. It was a typical summer day at the Wee Correctional Institution, a maximum security prison housing over 1,500 men. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, desperation, and fear. This was a place where hope went to die, a concrete jungle where the strong preyed on the weak. The prison was a labyrinth of echoing corridors and clanging steel doors. Each cell block was a microcosm of the larger prison, a pressure cooker of emotions ready to boil over at any moment. The guards, outnumbered and constantly on edge, walked a tightrope between maintaining order and becoming just another victim of the violence that simmered beneath the surface. Officer Johnson was new to this world. She was a young black woman, barely 5 feet tall, with a bright smile and a quiet determination. She had joined the Department of Corrections, hoping to make a difference, to bring a little humanity to this unforgiving place. But nothing could have prepared her for the reality of life inside Wee Correctional. The inmates, many of them hardened criminals serving life sentences, saw her as an easy target. They hurled insults and threats, testing her resolve, trying to break her spirit. But Officer Johnson refused to be intimidated. She held her head high, her hand resting on the taser strapped to her belt, her eyes constantly scanning for any sign of trouble. It was during a routine lockdown that everything changed. The inmate, small in stature and known drug user, was acting erratically. His eyes were bloodshot, his speech slurred, his body trembling with excitement and nervousness. He had somehow managed to get his hands on some kind of contraband narcotics, and the drugs were turning him into a horny, wild animal. Officer Johnson tried to reason with him, to calm him down, but her words were lost in the fog of his drug-induced frenzy. He lunged at her, his tiny fist connecting with her jaw, sending her crashing to the concrete floor. The other inmates, sensing weakness, began to bang on the bars of their cells, their shouts echoing through the cell block as the scene descended into chaos. As Officer Johnson lay dazed on the floor, the inmate straddled her, his hands closing around her throat. Her vision blurred, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She feared for her life. But just when she thought all hope was lost, a figure emerged from the shadows. He was an older Hispanic inmate, his face etched with the lines of a hard life. He was serving a long sentence for armed robbery, but he had always maintained a quiet dignity, a sense of honor that set him apart from the other men in the prison. Without hesitation, he threw himself at the attacker, tackling him off Officer Johnson and sending both men crashing to the ground. Section 5. A Moment of Truth. A struggle ensued, a desperate fight for survival in the harsh prison environment. The two men grappled on the cold, hard concrete floor, their bodies slamming against the walls, their grunts and curses echoing through the cell block. The other inmates watched in stunned silence, their usual taunts and jeers replaced by a sense of awe and disbelief at the intensity. The Hispanic inmate, despite being older and smaller than his opponent, fought with the ferocity of a man possessed by sheer will. He managed to get the upper hand, pinning the attacker to the ground and raining down blows on his face and head with unyielding force. The attacker, his drug-fueled rage beginning to wane, struggled feebly against the older man's relentless and unyielding assault. Section 6. Justice and Humanity. The sound of the fight reached the ears of the other guards and they rushed to the cell block, their pepper spray drawn. They swarmed the scene, pulling the two men apart and hauling the attacker to his feet. He was dazed and bleeding, his clothes torn, his face contorted in a mixture of pain and confusion. Officer Johnson, her head throbbing, her throat raw and bruised, watched in amazement as the guards led the attacker away. She looked at the Hispanic inmate, who was sitting on the floor, his chest heaving, his clothes ripped, his face bloodied but triumphant. He met her gaze, a flicker of something like pride in his eyes. Section 7. Scars and Gratitude. In the aftermath of the attack, Officer Johnson was taken to the hospital. The sterile environment of the medical room contrasted sharply with the chaos she had just endured. Her injuries were not life-threatening, but the emotional scars ran deep. The physical pain would heal, but the psychological impact was far more profound. She had come face to face with the brutal reality of prison life, and it had shaken her to her core. The walls that once felt like a place of work now seemed like a fortress of fear. The memory of the attack, the feeling of the inmate's hands around her throat, would haunt her for years to come. Every time she closed her eyes, the scene replayed in vivid detail. But amidst the fear and trauma, there was also a profound sense of gratitude. She realized how fragile life was and how quickly it could be taken away. She was alive, and that was thanks to the courage of a man she barely knew, a man who had risked his own life to save hers. This act of bravery was a beacon of light in her darkest hour. She had seen the worst of humanity that day, but she had also witnessed an act of extraordinary selflessness, a moment that would forever change her perspective on people. It was a testament to the fact that even in the darkest of places, hope and compassion could still exist. This experience, though harrowing, had shown her that there was still good in the world, even in the most unexpected places. As she sat in the medical room, reflecting on the day's events, she knew that her journey was far from over. The scars would remain, but so would the lessons learned and the gratitude she felt. Officer Johnson vowed to carry forward with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to make a difference, no matter how small, in the lives of those around her. Section 8. Redemption Behind Bars. The Hispanic inmate's actions that day sent shockwaves through Wee Correctional Institution. It was a day that would be remembered by everyone within those walls. He was hailed as a hero, his story spreading through the prison yard like wildfire. Inmates who had never spoken to him before now approached him with admiration and respect. The inmates, many of whom had spent years hardened by the brutality of prison life, looked at him with newfound respect. They saw in him a beacon of hope, a symbol that change was possible even in the darkest of places. He had shown them that it was possible to rise above the violence and despair, to act with honor and compassion even in the face of unimaginable adversity. His actions inspired others to reflect on their own lives and choices. The guards, too, were impressed by his bravery. They had always seen him as a model prisoner, a quiet and respectful man who seemed out of place in this brutal environment. But now, they saw him in a new light. They had always seen him as a model prisoner, a quiet and respectful man who seemed out of place in this brutal environment. His actions that day had revealed a depth of character they had never imagined. He had shown them that redemption was possible, even for those who had made grave mistakes. But his actions that day had revealed a depth of character they had never imagined. He had reminded them that even within the walls of a prison, there were still good men, men capable of extraordinary acts of courage and selflessness. His bravery had bridged the gap between inmates and guards, fostering a sense of mutual respect. He had reminded them that even within the walls of a prison, there were still good men, men capable of extraordinary acts of courage and selflessness. His story became a testament to the power of redemption and the human spirit's ability to rise above even the most challenging circumstances. Section 9. The Ripple Effect. The story of the heroic inmate and the grateful officer transcended the walls of Lee Correctional Institution. It was picked up by local and national news outlets, spreading across the country and capturing the hearts of millions. People were moved by the inmate's selfless act, his willingness to risk his own life to save another, even someone who represented the authority that kept him confined. The story sparked a national conversation about redemption and second chances. People began to question the purpose of punishment, the humanity of a system that often seemed designed to crush the spirits of those trapped within it. The inmate's act of heroism had shone a light on the complexities of the criminal justice system, reminding people that even those who had committed terrible crimes were still capable of change, of compassion, of extraordinary acts of courage. Section 10. A Testament to Hope. In the end, the story of the heroic inmate and the grateful officer was more than just a news story. It was a narrative that transcended the walls of the prison, reaching the hearts of many who heard it. It was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a beacon of light in a place often shrouded in darkness. A reminder that even in the darkest of places, hope and compassion could still flourish. It showed that the human heart is capable of incredible resilience and kindness, even when faced with the harshest of circumstances. It was a story about the possibility of redemption, about the transformative power of empathy and understanding, the importance of second chances, and the belief that people can change, given the right support and opportunities, and the enduring belief in the inherent goodness that resides within us all. It was a story that reminded us that no one is beyond redemption, and that everyone deserves a chance to make amends. The inmate's act of heroism had not only saved Officer Johnson's life, but it had also sparked a change within the prison community. It had given her a renewed sense of purpose, a deeper understanding of the complexities of the job she had chosen. She realized that her role was not just to enforce rules, but to help guide and support those in her care. This newfound perspective allowed her to connect with the inmates on a more human level, fostering an environment of mutual respect and understanding. And for the inmate himself, his act of courage had earned him something far more valuable than his freedom. It had earned him redemption. It had shown him that even behind bars, he could still make a difference. He could still be a force for good in the world. It had given him a sense of purpose, a reason to strive for better, to be better. His actions had inspired others, both inside and outside the prison walls, to believe in the power of change and the possibility of a brighter future. It had shown him that even behind bars, he could still make a difference. He could still be a force for good in the world. His story became a symbol of hope, a testament to the idea that no matter where you are or what you've done, you can always choose to do the right thing. He could still be a force for good in the world. And in doing so, he had not only changed his own life, but had also touched the lives of many others, proving that hope and redemption are always within reach.